If the brush head still looks fine, do we need to switch the toothbrush? I'm Rick Buck, and I've been a dentist for over 14 years now, and I must admit, even I think it's sort of a scam that toothbrush companies say you have to change your toothbrush head every 6 months or whenever that line on the toothbrush head starts to fade halfway down. It seems like a convenient way for them to get us to all buy more toothbrushes. So in this video, I'm not referring to toothbrush bristles that start bending backwards and are out of shape because you've been using them since maybe the first grade, but I'm talking about ones that look completely fine and you've just been using them longer than 6 months. I mean, if the brush head still looks fine, do we need to switch the toothbrush? That's what I want to test out, and that's what we're gonna find out today. So let's start how I always do, by staining the plaque in my mouth pink. What you will be watching right now is on one screen, me brushing with the old brush head, and then on the other screen, me brushing with the new brush head. Now, I'm just gliding the brush along both days, seeing how much the brush will do on its own, with its own electric movements, not me manually brushing. After we see the results here, I will then test it out again on 2 other days, and this time I'll be using my favorite brushing technique, where I will be getting the maximum out of my brush by brushing using manual movements as well as the electric movements of the brushes. And that way we will see how well both the brush head does on its own and with me using them at their full capacity, and seeing in 2 different ways if there is a difference between the old brush head and the new brush head. So just so you know, I saved a toothbrush head that I had used for over a year and probably closer to 2 years, to be honest. In fact, I bought these toothbrush heads in a pack a few years ago, and they don't even label the brush heads the same way as they used to because it's been so long. But they still make the brush heads, they just kind of rebranded them. But you can see the stripe on my old toothbrush head is way far down, to the point where they tell you it is definitely time to change it. Now, this is a Philips Sonicare, and I don't use this brush anymore. I'm using it just for this demonstration only because this is the one that had the toothbrush head that I used for that long. It is a great toothbrush, but if you want to know the reason why I switched, you can watch another video where I use my favorite toothbrush, and you will see it go to work in my best daily brushing and flossing routine, and how you can get your mouth virtually spotless from plaque. And if you're interested, I will link to both my favorite and this toothbrush below this YouTube video in the description. Okay, let's look at what is left over after I rinse out my teeth with both my old and my new brush head, using the technique where I just glided the toothbrush along and let the brush head do all the work. It doesn't look like much of a difference at first glance. In fact, they both leave a lot of plaque behind in certain spots, especially on the lower teeth. But you can see there's still a little hue of pink stained plaque around all my teeth on both the old and the new brush head. But it actually seems to be more on the new brush head, meaning it may not have removed as much plaque as the old brush head. In fact, on the lower first molars, even though there is a lot of plaque left behind with both brushes, it seems like the old brush head was a little better at removing what was there. And you'll have to excuse the toothpaste I left behind there, so it's just blocking the results just in that one little spot. Pretty close to the results, but I'd have to say in this scenario, the old toothbrush did actually a little bit better. Now let's quickly do it again, only this time we will do it by manually brushing in addition to the Sonicare's electric brushing. If you want to know why I test out both ways, you should watch my video on how to use an electric toothbrush. The gist of it is that most electric toothbrush companies recommend you brush by just gliding the toothbrush along, but in my opinion, that is way wrong. I don't get it or know why, because the toothbrush does way better at removing plaque if you use a brushing motion in addition to the electric motions that are offered by the electric toothbrush. But it is actually helpful to test this way. That way you can see how much the brush will do on its own before I can use the brush in the best way of removing everything. But once again, watch my video on how to use an electric toothbrush for more on that. Now, there are other reasons to change your brush besides the amount of plaque removal. I mean, for some, it is just kind of gross and it builds up a lot of foreign bacteria on your brush. But your body gets tons of foreign bacteria every day, which actually helps it survive and to keep a strong immune system. And that's not a fallacy, that's actually true studies. The more foreign bacteria you get, the stronger your immune system. So it doesn't bother me too much. Before we look at the results, let me make one point I always make. If you're wondering about buying a new toothbrush head or not, the best thing you can do for your oral health is to get great floss, even more important than what brush you use. Because of that, my favorite dental product isn't even a toothbrush. It is a floss, and a specific floss. I will link to it in the description. So let's look again at the results. The results here, when you look close, are kind of mixed. First, there is definitely less plaque with the brushing technique I used on these 2 days as opposed to the gliding technique I used on the previous 2 days. But as far as is the old brush head or new brush head better, the new brush head definitely removed the plaque on the lower first molars better, but looking at the rest, it appears as though the old toothbrush did better as it seems to remove more of that pink stained plaque halo around all the teeth, meaning it looks like the old brush gets further between the teeth, which is more important to me than a few missed spots, especially spots that a good floss will get. I don't know why. Perhaps it is because the old brush head is more loose and not as rigid, but it seems like the old brush head did a little bit better. You can chalk this up to luck that the old brush head did better, and I have done this on multiple days. I'm just showing you what I think is a good example of what I've seen most of the days, but I definitely don't see the need to change the brush head every 6 months from a plaque removing point of view. I would just look at the brush. Are the bristles bending backwards, or do they look beaten and broken? Then that is a good time to change the brush. Or if you're just disgusted by how long you've been using the toothbrush, then remove it and buy a new one. Instead, I would focus on having the best products. And once again, I will link to my favorite products below this video. Anyway, make sure you watch my video on the best daily brushing and flossing technique. The results are stunning and everyone should watch that at least once. Like and subscribe if you have teeth.